Hey, what's going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this brand new episode of JJ's One Man Podcast. I'm finally sitting down to talk about the Game Awards 2021. It's been a few days since the show actually happened, and I know that other people have been putting out their reactions and impressions of the show ever since the show first finished, but I wanted to take a day or two to simmer and marinate on my thoughts and have some good just overall opinions and perspective on the Game Awards this year for 2021 anyway. So that being said, thank you so much for at least checking out the channel thus far. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel as well for all my videos that are like this, the podcast, all my reviews, and everything else that you'll definitely want to check out, besides the one-man podcast shows. But anyway, we're going to run through a bunch of stuff related to the Game Awards, the winners. We're going to talk about some of the announcements and some other thoughts that I wanted to touch on. I'm not really going to go into any specific order when it comes to the different things I want to discuss. So I'm not going to go in the exact order that the show was in, but I'm going to kind of flip-flop and bounce around between a few different things. So let's talk a little bit about the awards. The best game of the show, okay, that got Game of the Year this year, was It Takes Two, which was surprising. I'm not going to lie. I honestly thought with all the other nominees, I mean, this entire list between It Takes Two, Resident Evil Village, Psychonauts 2, Metroid Dread, Deathloop, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, I honestly thought they were either going to give it to Resident Evil Village or they were going to give it to Deathloop. And the main reason why I thought Deathloop was going to win was because it had won so many other awards earlier in the night. But it's very surprising to see It Takes Two take the win here for Game of the Year. I actually think that's pretty good. I'm not mad because my initial pick was either going to be Metroid Dread or Deathloop or Psychonauts 2, personally for me, even though I also thought that Ratchet & Clank was a pretty good game this year. But I'm kind of cool with that. I'm cool with that winner. There was other awards here that I could touch on. I know a lot of the awards this year, they really really sped right through them. It was very surprising. I know a lot of people have complained about that, and I understand why, but I also understand the flip side of this, because in previous years, I know for a fact people have complained about how they spent too much time on certain awards, and maybe it's just a matter of figuring out which awards are like more important than the others, as far as like, getting through them, or at least getting through the ones to not take up too much time, for certain subjects. But this year, I know that a lot of people complain about that for various different ones, especially I think it was Fighting Game of the Year was really kind of, run through, even though I knew what game was going to take it, and that was Guilty Gear Strive. Deservedly so. It was the best fighting game this year. All the other fighting games that came out this year were not as good as that one. But anyway, regardless, though, another surprising one, which I thought was another feel-good moment when it came to the awards, was Best Narrative, and that went to Guardians of the Galaxy from Marvel and Square Enix. That was a good pick. Not gonna lie, that was actually pretty good. I expected, honestly, also either Life is Strange True Colors to win or Psychonauts 2 to win as well, or the same thing with Deathloop, because that was another game that had won a bunch of awards. Like, I'm scrolling through now on Google some of the winners. I know Best Art Direction went to Deathloop. What was the other one? There's like a couple others that I'm like scrolling through here that has a few others that are going around. I believe which one? No, that was Resident Evil Village. Like, there's a couple in here. Like, I can't find it at the moment, but like, I'm just scrolling through this list. There was a lot. Okay, Arcane Studios Best Studio Game Direction. That was the other one that Deathloop went to. There was a couple I know that were there, but it was surprising to see another like game chosen like that for that win, which was nice. Okay, best narrative to me, I felt that there was a lot of good talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, which was cool, especially with the dialogue. A lot of people loved the banter between the characters, so deservedly so. That was a cool moment. And the same thing also for best ongoing game was another one that I was surprised that I also felt was well deserved, was Final Fantasy XIV. In a category that has Fortnite, Call of Duty, Genshin Impact, and Apex Legends, it's nice to see that not the typical super popular game ended up winning in this category. So that was pretty dope as well. Now, as far as the other awards, I mean, they had other ones in here. Content Creator of the Year, I didn't really care for. They had Most Anticipated Game went to Elden Ring, which, funny enough, they announced that, and they also had the little special reveal of Elden Ring, so it was kind of a little questionable, but I totally understand it. I thought it was surprising, though, because in a category that has Breath of the Wild 2, Starfield, Horizon Forbidden West, and God of War Ragnarok, I'm surprised that there's more people anticipating Elden Ring, or much more people hyped up for Elden Ring than any of those games. That was something that I talked about on Twitter when I was live tweeting my reactions and stuff. Best RPG was another one that they kind of like sped through, was Tales of Arise, that ended up taking it. And Best Community Support also went to Final Fantasy XIV, which was cool. Best Action Adventure was one of my other picks that I thought was going to win this one, was Metroid Dread, because at least Nintendo was walking away with something this year from the Game Awards. What I found funnier, though, like especially on, on Twitter and social media after the awards show happened, was so many people upset that Nintendo really didn't reveal anything. I thought that was hilarious because it was like this expectation, and people were hyping up that Nintendo was going to show up with like maybe the trailer or some reveal for Breath of the Wild 2, especially since it was featured in most anticipated games. But they ended up showing nothing. I think they had like some sort of like brief sizzle reel that was like in the intermission or one of the commercials that showed all the games we already knew about from Nintendo, which was all the way back during E3, or at least E3 time, I should say, because we didn't really have a proper E3 this year. It was really funny, and just seeing the reactions and like overall sadness of different like Nintendo content creators and other fans, it was kind of funny because they did that to themselves, to be honest with you. But I digress. So looking through the rest of these categories, not really much else to talk about as far as anything I have to say. Oh, I guess there's one more I guess I could say too. Best multiplayer game also went to It Takes Two, which was another surprising one for me because I know It Takes Two is co-op, but in a category that has Monster Hunter Rise or Back 4 Blood or Knockout City, I thought those were going to be one of the games that ended up winning best multiplayer. But a lot of people that ended up voting on the Game Awards seem to really like It Takes Two, surprisingly so. But anyway, that's just me. That's just my thoughts on some of the winners. Now, let's talk about some of these reveals. I'm actually going to switch over looking at my phone at some of the reveals because there were some big ones. There were some really cool ones that happened this year, even though we didn't get a whole lot of gameplay from some of them. A lot of them were just pretty much cinematic reveal trailers, but I'm cool with that. At least I know that these games are coming, and at least the biggest one that was the most unexpected for me was Star Wars Eclipse. You all know I love Star Wars games. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I did not expect to see the Quantic Dream game shown here in any capacity. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little iffy because it takes place in the High Republic timeline or the High Republic era, which, if you don't know what the High Republic is, it's basically like this prequel to the Star Wars movies and to the, like, I think it takes place like right after the Old Republic stuff, but it's set in this time frame that Disney has kind of made, and it's been weird, it's been goofy, a lot of people don't like it, but this is Quantic Dream. These are the people that made Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls. So they know what's up when it comes to making narratively driven, like, amazing games that have a lot of good characters and good writing. So this is going to be really cool set in the Star Wars universe. And from the races and the stuff that we saw in that trailer, it was pretty hype. I'm not going to lie. I thought it would look really freaking good, and I want to see more. I definitely want to see more, and I definitely want to get more details about what that game is going to end up being. Because since it is Star Wars, I hope at least there's going to be some action sequences, not just, decisions here and there. Because I was talking with a friend of mine, they was just expected just a lot of decisions here and there. So moving on from that, despite that being what I felt was the biggest reveal of the night, let's talk about some of these other games that were shown here. I mean, we got some stuff for Alan Wake 2, which is pretty cool. It looks a lot more horror and kind of like suspense driven as opposed to more action, which a lot of people seem to like. We got to see Sonic Frontiers, which is the next Sonic game that's going to be coming to PS5 and PS4 in 2022. It's pretty much borrowing some elements from Breath of the Wild when it comes to these open world environments or open environments that you could run in. There's going to be a lot of space for Sonic to run around, and hopefully it's a lot more better than some of the previously, Sonic 3D games, because a lot of those games have not been that great. We also got the announcement of a Wonder Woman game, which is surprising from WB. I was expecting to see the multiverse game that was like that Smash Brothers type game that was shown a little while back that got revealed. But still, it's kind of cool to see that now one of the other big three from DC is going to get a big game for herself, Wonder Woman, because she's never really had her own solo video game. So this is a first, and it's going to be interesting to see. I want to see more of that game before I pass any sort of judgment on it. We've had other, reveals as well. We had a Plague Tale Requiem that's coming to PS5. We got to see some more gameplay from Elden Ring, which looked nice. We also got to see Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I'm still indifferent about that game, to be honest with all of you. I was never really a fan when it was first revealed, but it seems cool. I mean, we did get to see a little bit of gameplay, but I still want to see more, and I want to get hands-on time with it, just to kind of get a feel of like how that game is going to be, because I'm still very cautious about it. I'm not like super excited. I'm just cautious. Besides that, this is one of the weird ones that I thought was kind of out of left field and was kind of meh. Was Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is coming to PS4 in March in 2022. And when I first saw it, I swear to God, I thought they were going to do a sequel to Arena Ultimax, because that would have been sweet. But for whatever reason, they're just re-releasing this game. I hope at some point, maybe they get to a sequel to do another Persona 4 Arena that will probably incorporate like Persona 5 characters. That would be pretty sweet. But at least for now, we're getting a re-release of that game, which if you haven't played Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, you definitely should. Even if you're not a big fighting game fan, if you're a Persona fan, this continues the story from Persona 4 and Persona 3, which is really sweet. A couple other things too. to touch on really briefly, and then we'll get to some of the more serious stuff. We're getting a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, which is going to be in the same vein as Friday the 13th and also the Evil Dead, which is kind of cool. We also got Rumbleverse, which is weird. It looks like a Fortnite-esque open world / massively multiplayer wrestling game. Not my cup of tea, but whatever. We're also getting Star Trek Resurgence, which is being done by Telltale. But for me, again, Star Trek is a brand that's kind of weird right now. It's in a very weird, awkward space, and I'm not really liking a lot of the newer stuff with Star Trek, but I'm curious to see what it ends up turning out. If it gets and borrows a lot of elements from like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and at least borrows like the thematic elements of that rather than the newer Star Trek stuff, I'm totally down with it, but I got to see more of it before anything else. We're also getting a new Warhammer 40k Space Marine game, a sequel that's coming to PS5. A lot of people are excited about that. I'm not really into Warhammer 40k like that, but it is cool to see people really excited about something that's got a legacy, especially for PC gamers with Warhammer 40k. We got a bunch of other stuff. They had some reveals, again, for Babylon's Fall. We're getting Among Us VR, which is going to be weird. I even said that on Twitter, like, that's going to be a weird turn of events, because I'm pretty sure not a lot of people are going to have a VR device to dive into it, especially if you don't have a PSVR or you have an Oculus for your PC, because you need a Beats PC to run VR games at a nice, stable frame rate. But I digress. We've had a couple other things here and there. Fall Guys had some stuff. Life is Strange True Colors talked about some stuff. There was a couple other things here and there. Nothing too crazy other than what I've already mentioned. Like, I'm looking through the list now. I mean, we got some stuff from Saints Row, which I didn't really care too much about. Forspoken was probably the only other game that I think was really cool. And I said the first time that I saw Forspoken that looks interesting, and I definitely want to see more, and I want to see more gameplay of it. It looks cool. Okay, but I got to get some hands-on time with it to really judge it. So we'll see what happens as that comes. Here's the other thing, too. This was another weird one. Slitterhead. We got to see a little bit of Slitterhead stuff, or at least the announcement of it, which is a bunch of former Silent Hill developers. And we had Guillermo del Toro and Kojima show up and just say hello. Guillermo del Toro mentioned Silent Hill, which I guess is a win, which I guess is something. A lot of people are like, oh, that's a hint. They're doing something with Silent Hill. Not really. I think it was kind of like a cheeky thing, maybe a little jab at Konami, because I know Jeff Keighley is not too much of a fan of Konami these days. At least, same thing with everybody else, even though they've done those re-releases for various games on PSN and Xbox Live and the eShop. But still, I guess that's a W for some people. Not really for me. I really don't care. As far as anything else, I think we're good as far as announcements, because everything else wasn't all that great to me. At least everything else wasn't all that exciting or something that resonates with me. So let's talk about some of the other things related to the Game Awards, which I think are also very important. Just a lot of people, I've watched some reactions on YouTube. I've listened to some podcasts. I listened to the Sacred Symbols one. I listened to the Angry Joe one. I saw a couple other videos from various different people, including Mr. Matty Plays and a bunch of other peeps that are talking about the show day after, or like a day or so afterwards. And I have to say, a lot of people seem to be very down on this year's show. Now, personally for me, okay, this is just a me talking, right? I didn't think the show was that bad, but I didn't think it was as good as the previous years. And the main reason being is because it didn't have a lot of big, like, crazy reveals like I mentioned before, but also just some of the games that were winning and stuff. I mean, some of them were predictable, some of them were surprising, but it wasn't anything that was like, oh, everybody was talking about like crazy the next day, like in previous years. We just didn't have like a lot of moments that were like that. We did have some cool performances. I'm not going to lie. Imagine Dragons is always cool to see. The actual orchestra that they had there for the different game music for all the nominees, that was pretty cool too. I love seeing that stuff. It's always a staple to the Game Awards. I feel like Jeff should do that every single time whenever he does the Game Awards. He should always have the orchestra and always have like a really cool musical talent, musical guest that shows up there. We even had Sting, which, funny enough, I didn't realize it was Sting at the beginning of the show until I really kind of like took a step back and looked online. And I was like, oh, that was Sting. Like, it was a cool piece of music. I don't think it really had anything to do with any of the games that were nominated. I believe it was from that Netflix League of Legends show that the song that he was singing was from. But I digress. It was still a nice performance. But as far as like the actual structure of the show and as far as the stuff that they had showed there, a lot of people were very down about it. There was a lot of commercials. I will admit the Game Awards always has a lot of commercials. There's always stuff there when it comes to ads because they got to make some money somehow. They have to work with some of the different companies and the businesses that are there. When it comes to, I guess you could say ethics or credibility or anything like that, I know and I understand why a lot of people get a little antsy about that because it does look a little kind of meh. It does look a little disingenuous, but that's part of the business of putting on a show like this. This is the same thing with the Oscars or even with the Grammys or the Golden Globes or any other like big awards show that they have for various different industries. You're going to have those advertisements. You're going to have all those companies that want to get their products out there. And that's how the show is made. That's how all this stuff is paid for. I mean, there's no way to get around it. I mean, of course, we definitely want to have more focus on the awards. We want to have more focus on the big world premieres when it comes to gameplay and big stuff that we actually get to see. But there's no way you're going to get rid of all those ads and stuff. And I don't think there's any way you're going to minimize it too. Keep in mind, this was the first Game Awards since COVID started that they had an in-audience crowd, which is fine. But still, like, there's a lot of things behind the scenes I'm pretty sure Jeff had to deal with and Jeff had to set up and talk to people in order to make this show go smoothly or at least become a reality. Because without any of that stuff, unfortunately, this show doesn't get made. This show doesn't happen. And what sucks, because I know a couple places have brought it up, it looks a little incestuous with some of the companies that are probably fitting the bill. I know a lot of people brought up some companies, I forgot the name of it specifically, but it was a Chinese company that made a brand new company that ended up being having their logo on a lot of different like advertisements and stuff throughout the show. So if you know a lot about that stuff, it probably looked very bad to you. But when I was watching it, not even knowing that stuff and just watching the show for what it was, it didn't bother me that much. Again, I'm wildly uninformed about some of this stuff, but as far as accepting what the show was when I saw it, it wasn't too grotesque for me, if that makes any sense. Now, a couple other things I do want to touch on. The one bad thing I do want to mention, and I don't care really if people get upset about this, because I think it does need to be said. There's nothing wrong with any of the diversity, inclusion, and harsh talk stuff that happened during the show. I think that's good. I think that's smart. I think that it's part of the industry, especially in light of recent events that happened. Because obviously, at the beginning of the show, when we saw Jeff, he talked a little bit about Activision, pretty much for what was been going on over there. Didn't really mention Activision by name, which I thought was weird. A couple other people pointed it out on social media that it was very weird. Some of which were the developers and the people that have been working at Activision that have worked on Call of Duty Vanguard. I feel kind of bad for them because they have to deal with a lot of nonsense that they had nothing to do with. They were all just like working hard, making this game, actually get released, and they have to deal with all the fallout of this other nonsense. So it's a shame to see that, and I think that maybe Jeff could have handled that a little bit better. He could have said Activision's name because we all know who he was talking about. He could have at least, expressed the sentiment for the people that were over there that weren't part of that nonsense. But at the same time, also, I mean, there's no way you're going to get around addressing something like that. And I feel like Jeff was put in a position where he has to say something. He has to say something because he got scrutinized and crucified on social media like days before the show because of all this stuff that was going on. And, it put him, and I'm pretty sure the show, in a weird vibe and a weird position. It's like, okay, all this stuff is happening with Activision, and Call of Duty is one of the biggest games around, and I'm pretty sure they had advertisements and other stuff related to Call of Duty ready to go, but how are you going to show that when all this stuff is happening and everybody's like really pissed off at Activision? It's a weird thing, and I don't think there was ever really a right solution for it. It just feels like whatever choice that they had to make or whatever decisions they had to make, it was going to be a lose-lose regardless. But anyway, I felt like at least they did it, and Jeff went about it the best way he could. He could have been a little bit much more, courteous to the developers at Activision is all I'm saying. Now, the other thing about that, too, diversity inclusion stuff, which was that little random weird segment that had Khalif Adams in there. I like Khalif Adams. I have no problem with Khalif Adams. I think he's cool. We've been very courteous, and he's really dope and been nice to me in the past. But when it comes to some of the other individuals that I saw on there and some of the talking stuff, in relation to that podcast and such, I'm going to be upfront and straight up with some of you people. Some of the individuals that were on there have no business being on that stage or shown on camera or talking about certain stuff when it comes to diversity and inclusion or any of these important topics, mainly because of what I've seen, how some of them have been on social media towards other people. Not necessarily about the topic. I'm not saying that the topic of diversity and inclusion, especially those with, that are African American in the games industry, that is very important. You need to talk about, but I don't think you need to show individuals that have been going around and being nasty / vitriolic / borderline racist towards other people on social media when they're, again, just because of their skin tone. I think that it gets into a very nasty, very crappy discussion that I don't think myself or anybody else wants to have. But let me be real. I think that you could have better individuals that were showcased on there talking about that stuff. I'm not talking about Khalif. I'm talking about some of the other individuals that I saw on there. But that's just my opinion. I know that's a very divisive and very sensitive thing, and it's very nuanced. It's not something we could really talk about in just a couple minutes here, and I don't want to focus too much on it. But that was probably the one section out of the entire show that I felt like was a real downer because of just, again, some of those people I felt like did not deserve to be on the actual screen. They didn't deserve to be shown there. But I digress. We'll talk about that another time. Getting back to the show, as far as everything else is concerned, some of the guests that were there were kind of goofy. They were all right. I mean, it was cool seeing some of the different presenters. Ming Na Wen was a pleasure to see. It's always cool to see Ming Na Wen. Tongue twisted there. Especially since she's been doing a lot of different stuff, with Star Wars, with Disney, and everything else. That was pretty cool overall. Seeing some of the other voice actors from the various different games was always good. Again, a lot of stuff there. A lot of people love different voice actors, especially from previous Game of the Year nominees or Game of the Year winners from previous shows. That's always cool. And of course, Neil Druckmann being, The Last of Us Part 2 being last year's Game of the Year, presenting Game of the Year to It Takes Two. That was pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people don't like Neil Druckmann, but I think Neil Druckmann's dope. I think he does a good job with a lot of stuff. Granted, he gets a lot of stuff from everybody else on social media for one reason or another, but it was cool and classy seeing him there present to It Takes Two, which was really cool. So overall, my thoughts about the Game Awards 2021. It was an okay show. It wasn't bad. It wasn't garbage. At least in my opinion, I understand where people are coming from by calling it that. But from watching the show myself and reacting to everything, it had its moments, which was fine to me. So that being said, those are my overall thoughts about the Game Awards 2021. I'm curious to see what you guys think about the show. Let me know down in the comments below about your own thoughts when it came to watching the Game Awards, seeing some of the big world premieres, the gameplay, the winners of the show, of course, any of the people that you saw show up for it. That was the other thing, too. I should mention, too, I almost completely forgot about it. The Game Awards also had this big thing with The Matrix Resurrections and The Matrix Awakens. I've yet to try out The Matrix Awakens. I'm going to download it on my PS5 to see what it's like. But there was a lot of movie stuff between the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer, which is fine, and The Matrix Resurrections trailer stuff or the preview stuff. It just kind of had nothing to do with games a little bit. It was more about movies. But again, it goes back to that whole getting like advertisements and stuff to make the show function and to make the show work. But either way, at least we got to see the new Sonic trailer. I'll just put it out there like that. I think the new Sonic trailer was actually pretty good. But anyway, talk to me about that stuff down below in the comments section. Leave a like on this video. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, more podcasts, more game reviews like I put up every single week, and other great content that I know you guys are going to love. Do not forget also, I have my Discord server. You guys could join. There's a link down below in the description box, as well as also in the pinned comment that you guys could join my Discord server to come talk about the Game Awards, come talk about video games, come talk about movies, all types of stuff. There's a great community of people that I have over there that I know you're going to love. With that being said, I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.